Welcome to PhotoArca Camera Companion Pro version 2.0. Let's take a deeper look at the settings that are user configurable to give you complete control over how your image files are named and stored. To begin, we need to gain access to the configuration section of the app. To access the configuration section, tap on the gray gear button located below the purple status bar, or alternatively swipe on the screen from left to right within the app space. Next, tap on the Event Configuration link at the top of the page to enter the configuration area. Save Load tab. The Save Load configuration screen allows you to create different backup profiles depending on what you'd like the app to do, or what equipment you will be connecting, or to quickly change settings between various backup and naming schemes. Profiles be configured for different cameras that you may use, or for different projects that you're working on, and so forth, all to make it easier for you to streamline your workflow and to make accessing and storing your files more efficient and meaningful. Using different profiles makes the backing up and storage process simpler and more efficient. To get started, start by tapping into the Save File Name field and give your profile a name. In this example, we will use Default. Once you've keyed in your profile name, tap on the Save button to save the profile parameters. Found below the Save button are the Load and Delete configuration buttons. The Load configuration button allows you to load a previously created backup profile and all the settings that you set within it. To do this, simply tap on the Load config button. The app will open to a screen where you can select the previously made profile you wish to load. Then tap on the profile you would like and tap on Done to load it. The Delete configuration button allows you to delete a configuration profile that you have previously created and no longer wish to use. To delete, tap on the red Delete config button. Once again, you will be presented with a screen that has your pre-made profiles. Select the profile that you no longer want and tap on Done to delete it from the system. The Load from Code button offers you the opportunity to load an existing profile that you've created on a different device. For example, if you created a backup profile on your iPhone and want to perform a backup on your iPad, you would simply tap the Load from Code button on your iPad and scan the QR code created on your iPhone. This will save you the effort of re-inputting all the backup parameters to keep your backups consistent from device to device. The next option you have is the Share QR code button. This allows you to create a QR code with all the settings that you have assigned within the current profile. This QR code can be scanned by any number of different devices, as described above, to load the backup profile and all the parameters contained therein. You can share this QR code via AirDrop, Messages, copy the QR code to be pasted into a document, or save it to Apple Photos, or to any other location using the Files app. The last section of this tab is the Event Configuration Password setting. Here you can secure your configuration profiles by establishing a configuration password. Once you input the password, you will need to confirm it and then save it by tapping the Set Password button, which will now be blue. The next time you attempt to access the Settings section of the app, you will need to key in the password in order to make any changes. This is helpful if you're at an event working with other photographers. You can share your profile with them, but they cannot change the default settings that you have established, thereby ensuring that everyone is using the same settings. To remove a password, tap on the blue Remove Password button. This will open a window where you will need to input the password once again in order to delete it. Once you've keyed in the current password, simply tap on Submit. This will remove the password from the system. Let's move on to the next tab in the configuration section. Let's tap on the File Backup tab at the bottom of the screen to access the File Backup configuration area of the app. In this section, you can change where the files are stored on your local device. When you first install the app, it will store your files in a default location within the app's working space. If you are okay with using this default, then you don't need to make any changes, but generally you will want control over where the files are stored on your device to make them easier to find. Additionally, by storing files outside of the app's working space, if you need to reinstall the application, you may risk image loss when the app is reinstalled. To customize where the files are stored, you change the default location by tapping on the Local Backup Path link, which is shown in blue. Tapping on the link will open up the iOS Files app, which allows you to navigate to where you would like the files stored after processing. In this example, we'll tap on the On My iPad to take us to the root folder of the device, then we'll tap on the Add Folder link at the top of the window and input a name for our folder. In this example, we're using Holiday Backup as our folder name. Once we key in our desired name, tap on Open at the top right of the screen to create and enter the newly created folder, then tap Open again to select it for use by the app. After selecting your desired storage location, the app will take you back to the configuration screen where you will see the folder you've just created as the backup path for your files. Don't be concerned if you see one or more % icons in the file name, as this is used by iOS as a placeholder for a space in your folder name and is normal. Next is an option that allows you to organize your files by file type. If you want each file type in its own subdirectory, toggle the Group Backups by File Type button to On. This will store all the images and videos by their file type in a subdirectory, which is named the file extension. For example, JPEG, MOV, RAW, and so on. If this option is not enabled, the app will put all of your files in the same folder regardless of file type. This can be very useful if you routinely take photos using both RAW and JPEG formats, as it will separate them out for quicker viewing and post-processing. File Backup Details section. In this section of the File Backup tab, you will select the date folder format that will be used when the app is organizing your photos by capture date. The default is a 4-digit year, followed by 2-digit month and a 2-digit day. If, for example, you took a photo on June 12, 2024, your image folder would be 2024-06-12. You also have the option to have it set as year, day, month, or month, day, year, or finally day, month, year. The next part in this section is the batch process size setting. By default, it is set to 20. Depending on the age and processor that is in your device, this number can be set higher or lower. A higher number will attempt to process a larger number of files in one process cycle, while a lower number will attempt to process fewer. If you set a higher number and you see a number of files that are failed, simply reduce this number and try again. Once you determine the optimal value for your particular device, you won't need to set this again. The last option on this tab is the Apple Photos storage section. When this setting is toggled to on, the app will store your downloaded and processed photos to the Apple Photos app. This is done in addition to storing them locally to the previously selected image storage folder. Currently, only image files can be copied to Apple Photos app. Tap on Save at the top right to save the settings. File Naming tab. Tap on the File Naming tab to access the file naming options within the app. The default setting is set to Automatic. This mode will rename your files from the camera's default naming convention to the date and time that the photo was taken, plus an incrementing frame number. The automatic naming format is a 4-digit year, 2-digit month, 2-digit day, 2-digit hour using the 24-hour format, 2-digit minute, 2-digit second, and an incremental frame number, all segments separated by a hyphen. The None option is used when you want to leave the file names in the same format, as they are named directly in camera. This may be a desirable option if you are simply backing up the files to your device as a fail-safe to your camera's memory card, and want to be able to refer to either of the files on your camera or on your device. To set the app to this setting, simply tap on the None tab to enable that option and save your settings by tapping on the Save button at the top right of the app. If you want to apply a custom naming convention to your images, you would tap on the Manual tab, which provides a myriad of options in how the files will be named. Let's examine the options in more detail. The first option you have applies a fixed prefix to the file name. The fixed prefix is the first part of the file name that your photos and videos will be renamed to. For example, if you were on holidays and wanted to record the city or icon you were visiting in your file name, you could put the city or icon as the fixed prefix. Let's pretend that we're in France visiting Paris. You could put France as the fixed prefix, and when the app renames the files, it will start each file name with France. The next option is the named input. Let's assume for this example that we'll put Paris as the named input. Using these settings, the file names would be France followed by the sequence delimiter, and then Paris. By default, the sequence delimiter is a hyphen, but you can also choose an underscore or no delimiter at all. The delimiter is used to determine the breakpoint of the file name when sorting images into directories, as discussed later in this video. The final option is the fixed suffix. For this example, if we were visiting the Louvre in Paris, we could put Louvre as the fixed suffix, or if you're using multiple cameras, you could put the camera model as the fixed suffix so that it is easier to know what camera was used to capture the photo or video. For this example, let's assume we were using a Nikon Z9, and we'll put Z9 as the fixed suffix. This would result in a file name of France-Paris-Z9. Next, we have a toggle option to include the prefix and suffix in the image file's EXIF comment section. Some processing apps will look at the comment field when filtering, so by adding these values to the file's EXIF comment section, it may help with filtering images in post-processing. Generally, we would suggest keeping them included, but you don't have to if you don't need it. The next option is the generated suffix length. This pertains to the index or frame number that is put at the end of the file name. It is set by default to 5, so you could increment to 99,999 frames before it resets to 0. Generally, this is more than sufficient because you would be changing your prefix on a regular basis to reflect how you want your images to be categorized. Related to the suffix length, the maximum file name length is set to 100 as a default. Generally, this isn't something you'll need to change, but as some operating systems have file name length limitations, we've provided a mechanism to limit it if necessary. The date format is the next option you can choose in file naming, and there are many options. In this section, you can select the date and time format that you want applied to your file names. The default is a 2-digit month, followed by a 2-digit day with a 2-digit hour in 24-hour mode, and a 2-digit minute, all of which are delimited by an underscore by default. You can change the delimiter to your choice of underscore, hyphen, or no delimiter. There are 5 additional date options available and 3 additional timecode options available for use in the file naming. This is extremely helpful when looking at a list of images to help zero in on a file taken at a certain time. The date and time is taken from the file's EXIF information, not the date and time it was downloaded from the camera, which is set in the file import section of settings and will be discussed in a later section. The last set of options are a toggle for the use name directories on backup and the name directory depth. If the use name directories on backup toggle is enabled, the app will create subdirectories based on the file naming structure as configured above, with the number of subdirectories created based on the input directory depth that is specified. As an example where France, Paris, and Eiffel Tower are used as the file name variables, if you enabled this option and set the directory depth to 3, the resultant directories would be the photo date, then France, then Paris, and finally Eiffel Tower with all the images contained in the last folder. If it was set to 2, then you would have the date, France, and Paris as the directories, and all of the images would be placed in the Paris folder. This is incredibly powerful as you can back up and organize while you're still photographing and going from one place to the next. It takes seconds to do and saves a lot of time when you finally get home in front of a computer, as all the images are already sorted by date, type, and file name. Don't forget to tap on Save to save your settings to the current profile. The final tab is the File Import Settings tab. These settings apply to importing photos from a camera or other connected device, from Apple Photos and using the Apple Files app. The first toggle is the Allow Downloading Duplicate Files from Source Location in the Same Session toggle. This setting will either allow or skip downloading duplicate files. This is something that you should be aware of if your camera has dual card slots, and you are using the in-camera duplicate storage of images to both cards. If you allow duplicates, then you will have 2 copies of the same image file stored on your iOS device. If disabled, then only 1 copy will be stored and the duplicate will be skipped. The next toggle is the Delete Files from Source Location after download. If enabled, this will delete the files from the camera, Apple Photos, or Apple Files app location after it has been copied and processed by the app. Next, you will see the Use Source Files Creation Date toggle, which will determine the date under which your photos are stored. For example, if you toggle this to on, then photos taken on January 15, 2024 will be found in the 2024_01_15 folder. Photos and videos will be saved in directories named the date they were taken. This information is taken from the file's EXIF details, so if your camera's date and time is incorrect, it will also be filed incorrectly. If you toggle this setting to off, then all the images and videos will be saved in a folder named the date that you ran the backup. For example, if you did the backup of your files on February 10th, then it would keep all the images in a folder called 2024_02_10, regardless of the date contained in the EXIF file information. The next toggle choice you have allows for a time zone offset. This will adjust the image capture time by the amount of offset in minutes that you input. This is helpful if you're traveling and forgot to change your camera's internal time to take into account a different time zone or daylight savings time. You can leave this blank unless you know that your camera time was set incorrectly and want the time to be corrected. The image capture time is pulled from the image file's EXIF file information. If your camera didn't record the time, then the download time will be used. This value can be either positive or negative to set the time forward or back. The final section is the external camera or device connections toggle. This is enabled by default, which means that it will automatically download everything that it sees on the connected device. Whether it's a camera, a card reader, thumb drive, or external hard drive, it doesn't care what you connect to it. If you want to have greater control over which images and movies are downloaded from the connected device, simply disable this toggle to force it into date and time mode. When in date and time mode, once you start the importing process, you will be presented with a window from which you can select the start and end date, along with the start and end time, that you wish to download and process from the device. Note that the app will look to the file's EXIF data to know which files to process. You can select an entire day or range of days, whatever your needs are. You are now ready to begin to use the app. Every time you launch the app, the default settings will be automatically loaded, and all you need to do is connect your camera or card reader to begin. Thanks for watching.